Hi, I'm Pete Stone, and welcome to the Law Series here on Dark Matters.
Hi Pete, thank you for joining us here on Dark Matters, the law series today. I'm Carly Spell. Khalees,
And
over to
I'm
you.
Khalees Nickel.
Pete heads up the amazing Sovereign project and will hopefully be joining us within the network soon with his own personalised space within the Dark Matters network. Pete has become a familiar face and keystone within the growing movement, aiding and assisting people in finding their own true path, changing legal fiction mindsets at will to lawful ones with his many years of knowledge and experience, lovingly manoeuvring living men and women away from tyrannical control. The Sovereign Project boasts not only educational tools to reset the consciousness of the masses, but practical solutions to common held issues within the platform, within Pete's own platform. Pete is also the author of two books: The System Death by a Thousand Cuts and the Sovereign Project Handbook. The links to which you will all find, I'll make sure that I put them below. So, Pete, once again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule and joining us today. I know you're a busy man. Over to you, Pete.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's good to be here, and it's nice to meet you. Obviously, me and you, Callie, we've met before and chatted, but you're new. Not met you in person before, so it's nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you.
So yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting
So,
Pete at the Sovereign Project. I think it was last year, so it's great to reconnect. And
Yeah.
as we were just saying off camera, I think it's ever so important, isn't it, that we're working with each other and not against each other in getting this information and knowledge out there. So I know we said, Pete, that we were perhaps going to talk about jurisdiction today, and
Mhm.
it's a topic I know that people ask me a lot about actually, and it's a topic that many people do get confused about. But it's hugely important to grasp if we're going to kind of begin to learn,
Yeah.
know who we are and learn how to operate in commerce and or out of it for that matter. So so we're going to talk to hopefully touch a little bit on jurisdiction with Pete, and if we do get time, the ever pressing bullshit of the WEF puppet, sadistic Khan as I call him, and maybe touch on the ULEZ and potential and upcoming remedies to it, because obviously it's a big thing at the moment with 15-minute cities, and well, I'm sure we'll manage to kind of press on that a little bit. So Pete, the first question
Hmm.
I was going to ask you is how did the Sovereign Project come about, and what can people expect to find from you, the remedy recourse
Okay.
wise, and what were the key events that set you sail on your current trajectory? Current trajectory.
Okay, yeah. Basically, I had no plans to set up the Sovereign Project. I was actually doing something completely different. I was actually in the middle of setting up a business that was developing a supercar kit car thing. I've actually got a YouTube channel, Project Supercar. That's me. So that's what I was planning on doing with my life. And I've been studying this as a sort of like a pastime, just because I want to know for myself personally. Now, what happened in 2015 is I realized that there was going to be a great reset, financial reset. So I thought I'd try and warn people of this. I did go political for a while. I tried to get on the stage. I tried to warn people. I did many interviews and hustings, spoke in front of audiences, explaining the banking system. This is when I wrote my book, trying to warn people of what's coming, the system by death by a thousand cuts. But what it was for me was in 2020 when we had the nonsense of the lockdown and the fake pandemic and all the rest of it. I knew it was a scam. I was warning people for many years that the lockdown was coming. Um, but what it was is people began to panic when a certain medical procedure was being mandated upon them. And I was looking at everybody and says, don't you know how contract law works? You can't be mandated unless you agree to the mandate. Okay. So you have to actually sign a contract with someone else agreeing to the mandate in the future. You can't be mandated. No one could just mandate you and says, right, you've got to have a medical procedure, because that would be a torturous act. It's a violation of your rights. And I realized that people didn't know how the system worked at all and didn't understand contract law. So I thought, okay, I will set up a website called the Sovereign Project, And on there will be free downloads. So all this information on how contracts work, how to do notices, affidavits, how the courts work, all this sort of stuff would be on there. People could download it and then they could learn this stuff. Okay. And then I asked a friend of mine, Mark Devlin, if he would put me on his podcast just to announce the fact that the website was now live and people could go and use it. So I did a podcast with him, and it's just an audio one. And he went sort of like semi-viral. It got thousands of views. I think last time I checked, it was like almost 50,000 views or something. And then I got all these people contacting me saying, well, would you be on this podcast, be on that? So I says, all right then. So that started. And it's around this time when I was actually going to the stand in the park. Okay. So every Sunday I'd go stand in the park and talk with these people. And they were all panicking. They were worried about what's coming. And I was trying to say, don't worry. I'll explain to you how the system works. Okay. So I was explaining the mandates, paperwork. And I ended up having this gathering of people, like a ring of people. And I'd be like on a soapbox telling everybody. And that evolved into me getting a venue. So I was offered to use a venue. And then I went to speak. I do a PowerPoint presentation. And we blew the doors off the place. You couldn't get people in. The pub was so full. They were in the car park and we had to put outdoor speakers and all the rest of it. And it's just taken off. It's gone crazy. And so the Sovereign Project is really expanded. We've got several workshops now. So we've got other people all over the country who are running their own Sovereign Project workshop, getting this information out to everybody. I think at the minute, I haven't checked in a while, but we've got something like 14,000 members in 75 countries at the minute. And this is people all over the world who want to learn this stuff and whatnot. Now we do an online course as well because that we were asked. So people said, "Do you do it online?" So it says yes, we do. So there is an online course now. It's a 22-week course. So I do speaking events, I do podcasts. I'm now got a good team of people with me, about 20 people as part of my team, and we're all working together on creating remedies. And we're having a real deep dive into the system. We're looking into being secured party creditors, taking control of the birth certificate, promissory notes, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, I'm on this 7 days a week now. My life has completely changed.
Yeah, and I think it's that old John Lennon thing, isn't it? Life is what happens to you whilst you're busy making other plans. You might have had plans for supercars, but the universe
Yeah,
had a. I'm not saying that you still don't perhaps do that as well if you get 5 minutes, but
when I might get back to it one day, who knows?
Yeah, and I think that happened to us all, didn't we? Because as soon I was a trained yoga teacher. I'd literally just and Khalees is a trained yoga teacher as well, aren't you, my love? And I'd just qualified, and that was my plan. I wanted to kind of get into women's health and mainly
Sure.
my own, really. But I was super kind of honed and toned and ready for that. And then, like you say, Pete, what is a mandate? A mandate is two men going out for a curry. In my opinion, it's not something that we pay any attention to. We know that these are rules and regulations of these private corporate entities. And again, like we said to Richard, you think that government being in mind control would be enough for people. I think what you do really well and I was watching your interview with Richard as amongst others. I like to do my due diligence as we should do in our lawful and legal terms. Is you keep things simple as common. You take a lot of I think we all have that capacity to do that. Like hopefully, I like to think I can do that as well. But I like to. People want the meme, and I think you certainly can draw a lot of complex information and make it accessible for people, which is obviously 14,000 members in
Mm.
a variety of different countries. That's evidence of that. And it is rewiring our brains, isn't it? And it's removing this programming and conditioning, like you say, about these torts that have been placed upon us, and again taught even when our children go to school to get taught. I always say it's criminal.
Yeah.
And yeah, so for me, like that kind of really comes across, like your passion, but also that ability to get that information over in an accessible manner for people, and so that they can learn at their own pace in their own time.
Yes, I mean, one thing I do find is a lot of people who join the Sovereign Project and learn, they are starting at the very beginning. So they don't know
Yeah.
anything. So a lot of people woke up in 2020. So what happened is they realized that something was going wrong with the government. They didn't like the laws coming from government because, of course, they thought it was laws. And they were going off to try and find different laws, in quotes, to counteract that. And they were trying to get into common law. And then they got completely lost. They didn't know anything about this. They didn't know signatures or contracts or anything like that. So I start at the very beginning. Like I say, I do a 22-week course. I hold it every week in Leicester, a live one. And if you can't make it, we do it online. And I take people from the very beginning. So I take it as if they know nothing. And I go through the different jurisdictions or the different layers or levels to law. Okay. I explain what law is. So then you can, when you know what law is, you can now spot what it isn't. So we go through that. I go through the power of the signature. I go through, like I say, notices, affidavits. And by the time you've done the 22-week course, not only will you know how to look after your own life and protect yourself, but you'll have the ability to go after these people who work for corporations who are actually committing fraud against you, because I show you how to do the lien process as well. But yeah, I try and make it as simple as possible. And most people who get into this, unfortunately, have realized they don't know anything, and it is scary for them because they realize I don't know anything at all. Where do I begin? I think we were mentioning this before we started, that there's quite a few people in the freedom movement, truth movement on the internet that might not be giving out the best information. So the Sovereign Project steers people in the right direction. And we always say, don't just trust what we say at the Sovereign Project. We'll give you the information and then do your due diligence and go and check it out for yourself. That's what you're supposed to do. And we help with the mindset as well. One last thing, because people are looking for magic paperwork. No, 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 no. Don't go looking for magic paperwork. You got to change your mindset. The mindset is key. Your paperwork is the extension of your authority, your mindset. So that's what we help people with as well.
Wow. Amazing. Love that. I felt supported just listening. I've got a
Thanks.
question I've got a question I'd love to ask you.
Yes.
And that is that along your journey, what have you encountered as your greatest challenge? And have you been able to find a remedy?
Yes. Well, my journey's been going on for about 30 plus years, or even when I was a teenager, I knew something wasn't right. So I got into trouble a lot at school because I would question things. So when the teacher said something, I was going, that doesn't make sense. So I'd get into trouble, get detention. And in the end, I stopped listening to the teachers anyway, which is a good idea. But things started not to make sense for me when I received my national insurance number when I was 15, a few months before my 16th birthday. And I go, what's this? Why have I got this plastic card with a number on it? What's all this about? Of course, my parents were brainwashed. They didn't know any better. And they said, oh, it's to do with the insurance to pay for the national health when you get sick, sort of things. What, really? Okay. Never really accepted that. So now the good thing is back then, I had a good father. So he taught me to be independent and to be reliant on yourself, okay, and to be able to have the ability to find the answers to questions. So instead of asking people, you would go and get your own answers. So I started when I left school. Obviously, went into work. I became an apprentice, but even then, I was able to write my own letters and notices and notices I'm not too good at, but I could write letters. So I was already used to it. So whenever I dealt with a corporation that was not doing what I told them to do, I would start writing my letters and say, no, I'm not agreeing with this, blah, blah, blah. So along the way, I've had lots of success because a lot of the times I would just stand my ground and I'd say, no, I'm not doing that. I didn't agree to that. And I would do this with many of the companies that I used to work for. So I used to work for many, many different corporations. And every now and again, the management would overstep the contract that I agreed to. And they would say, no, you've got to do this. And I go, I never agreed to this. So I would fight and I would stand my ground. And it's just the way I am. So, yeah, a lot of the times I win. I've probably got an 80% success rate. Sometimes you get to a point and you think it's not worth my time. It's funny. Sometimes if I get a parking ticket, although I don't get many of them, sometimes I go, oh, it's 25 quid. I can't be bothered with it, whatever. Other times, no, I'm fighting it. And then I win. But yeah, what I try and do is try and get people to stand their ground, have a go, fight. Don't be a doormat. Don't just be, bulldozed over. See, here's the thing: when you're dealing with a corporation or the people who work for a corporation, they will bluff you at the very beginning. So when you contact them, they'll say, "Oh no, it's not our policy," blah blah blah, and they'll bluff you. Stand your ground. Don't put up with that. Say, I'm not asking, I'm telling. I'm serving notice. Get it done. This is now my second notice. Get it done. Now, the thing with these corporations is they know they've got 3 attempts to get rid of you. So they can bluff at least 3 times. They can't do it on the fourth because they've got a major problem. Because we all know about the 3-letter rule. The number 3 is very important within the legal system. There's hidden religious connotations to it as well. But if you warn someone 3 times and then they still fail, they can't use the excuse that, oh, I didn't know. No, I told you 3 times. I served you notice 3 times. So keep pushing, keep fighting. So that's what I try and get to. Yeah. And we've had great success. People have done it. We've had people who are in their 60s have never written a notice before, never fought. They've done it and they've got a result and they feel fantastic. They went, I didn't know I had that power.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's key, isn't it? I think it's if we can get these processes simplified, and it goes back to, again, like what hopefully, like I always say, it's taking a lot of technical information and giving people the mean, because I think we've got a passion for it. And I also think if you haven't got a passion for it, with what's happening in our current climate, then get one, because it is about that freedom. It is about know thyself, like you said, Pete. It is about mindset. And if we can simplify what is basically commercial process, we know about the 10 commercial maxims. If we can kind of get to, like you say, the basics about the birth certificate, how things, all of these operations are commercial and corporate operations, and how we can use due process to hold them to account, or just like say to have our sovereignty or sovereignty. And like I say, three in commercial process, it's like the 369 of Tesla. So we know that we can, we get them in default, rather than by us, oh, we don't know what to do, and staying silent and staying quiet. We know that we can kind of use these commercial processes and liens to turn the tables on them, and we can use their own rules against them. Because I think what a lot of people have forgotten out there is that they are public servants. They are there to serve us, and that's been lost and turned around. I mean, without getting into the historical, thousands and thousands of years, we've more than likely been slaves in our origins. And I think that's what we kind of do at Dark Matters, which is we go into the esoteric, and we go into the more kind of Gnostic spiritual stuff. So I think that's why a collaboration with us is great, and with like people who are out there doing amazing stuff, like we've got some great people lined up to come to the network. Because I think like I said, you get to the Sovereign Project and do a course like you offer, this 22-week course, people can learn at their own pace. And I think once you've got that basis for knowledge, it then kind of perhaps come and see us, which is why I want other people in the network that offer this. Because I mean, I deal with debt titles and trust titles, and I think unless you've got the basics down, that stuff's going to go over your head, really, which is, again, we work together. I mean, our files in Dark Matters, I mean, it's huge, and it's got all this reading. But to have somebody, and I don't mean it in a patronizing way, because we all need our hands holding at points, and we all need to learn from each other, don't we? But you can ask questions in real time, and I'm we're starting to do that in the network as well, and offer that. And varying things, and me, and I always think it's the language. I love my etymology. I love the spiritual elements of it. Like you say, we always know it's 3 in commercial process. 3 is the magic number. 3, 6, 9, 12 in Tesla of the universe. And I I can go on for ages, so I won't. But I got sent I get some of the documents from your courses, because I signed up, so I kind of I keep a two-tom. And I was reading, there was one that came through about the birth certificate, and it's just so. I mean, I find it fascinating, and I still do every day. The language of it, and you were talking in one of your documents, Pete, about foundling hospitals, and just again that language. When we decode the system, and obviously we're birthed in these foundling hospitals, and foundling means it's a place where abandoned goods are shipped to be discarded. And the midwives today actually still hold one of the highest offices, as do the coroner's office is one of the highest offices in the land. Because what do they deal with? They deal with the dead, and the Minister of Transport, and so on. So we know that we're born onto a ward. You become a ward of the state, and a state is a contract. And then we're getting into like quantum grammar, which is like blows my head off. And Andy from the Good's going to come on and talk about quantum grammar in his Reek Northern. Grimsby. I'm saying he's from Grimsby. I don't think he's from Grimsby. He might shoot me. But yeah, Yorkshire way. And again, we know that we are these wards of the state, and then we become wards of the courts, and we have these certificates of
Yeah.
manifest, which are share certificates. And we become these certified goods, aren't we?
Yeah.
The deceptions are endless. And your book, Pete, that I was having a toot at it earlier, the system, Death by a Thousand Cuts. That's a great name, by the way. I was like, impressive. And you talk about a lot of things in there, from the banking system to fractional reserve lending and debt, etc., and so on. The beat goes on. So what would you say was your most shocking discovery on your own personal journey about the legal system? I have
Mm.
what I call a few motherfucker moments a day when I learn something new. And one of my recent ones, just as an example, but I learned that they can securitize job applications, and I was just like, because obviously it's got a signature on it.
Yeah.
And we know it's all about securities and bringing these bonds forward, depending on what it is. And I also I didn't realize they could securitize failed loan applications as well. So you don't have to even take out the loan; it's that the failed loan application is enough. So, what's your most recent motherfucker moment, Pete?
Oh, let me see. I think one of them was discovering fractional reserve banking and fiat currency. That was a massive one for me, because I only had a very basic understanding of money when I was a teenager in the 90s, So I knew that the notes we had didn't actually have any value, but they were supposed to represent something of value. And back then, I just thought it was gold or silver. But then I discovered fiat currency, and I was, what? I was going, what's going on here? And I mean, I remember it took me like a week, and that's all I was thinking about. That the fiat currency had no value. It was effectively created out of thin air, but that didn't satisfy my interest because I thought, no, there's something more to it. Because I was trying to get into the national debt. I was trying to research that because I kept hearing about the national debt going up and all the rest of it. And I goes, what's this? What's this national debt? How does this work? So I had to go and teach myself economics. So I went off and did that, came back. Oh, this is one thing. When you do research, when you discover something, you realize you've got to go off and learn something else, a new topic to go back. So when I when I found out about the unum sanctum and stuff like this, and it was talking about trust and all this, I thought, oh no, I don't know anything about trust. I better go off and research that for a year, come back, and then learn about unum sanctum and three crowns and all this. But yeah, the fiat system, that blew my mind. And then the birth certificate. That's when I discovered the birth certificate and found out that we were actually the creditors to the national debt. I mean, I heard about the straw man probably in the 2000s, I think, after 9/11, because I started really researching stuff after the 9/11. And I thought, what's that straw man? I started to research that. And then I discovered legal fictions, corporations, dead entities. But yeah, fiat currency and the birth certificate as a securitized instrument was like mind blown. Oh, and then the last thing that's blown my mind is when I realized we don't own anything at all.
Yeah.
Okay. But the good thing that I discovered is the entire system is so fraudulent. That's the ultimate. So even though I was learning this over a couple of decades, I was like, oh my God, learning this, and I was panicking. Ultimately, I discovered the system is so fragile, it's unbelievable. You can tip it over with a feather. And it's a bluff. When you learn that, the entire system's a bluff, and you can take all your stuff back, your property, your children, your everything. Oh. Anyway, that's the ultimate thing that I discovered.
Yeah. And I think
It's a great
definitely
time.
the whole system, isn't it, Khalees, is it's just castles built on sand.
It is.
Blow it and it falls
Absolutely.
over, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if we can
Well,
get into this thing about the birth certificate, right? Because a lot of people say that, oh, we've been made slaves, we've been put into trust and all this. That's not technically true. Now, here's the
no.
thing. You can't be put into trust. A living, breathing man or woman or a baby cannot be put into trust. And the reason being, well, there's two reasons. One, you can't split the title of a baby, can't do it. And you can't put a man or a woman into trust because that would make them a slave because it turns them into an object that is physically owned by someone else. That's slavery. Now, the people behind the system know this. They know they can't actually put the baby into trust. But what they actually do is they put a legal title into trust called child or infant. So when you know that, you go, well, I've got nothing to do with this trust then. I'm not accepting the legal title. So yeah, a lot of people think it's us that are being placed into trust. No, no. That's why the system's so fragile.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
it's interesting, isn't it? We're at this stage in time with the paradigm of the change in minds both ways.
Mhm.
So where the servant believes it's the master, it's actually always the servant, but we've obviously gone along with the miseducation and the misdirection. But the awakening has afforded us to go, hold on a minute, wait, no, me is the boss man. Me is the one that, make the agreement. And without us, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen, does it? And if people recognize that same energy, the energy of fighting and, professionally complaining, as I put it, if they actually directed that same energy into remedy,
Mhm.
we're good.
Yes.
We're good all the way to the bank.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this
Sorry,
is it.
I had to throw that one
That's
in
right.
off the back of what you guys are saying.
If we can get these points over, and that's where the empowerment is, isn't it? I always say, and we do, don't we, at Dark Matters, it's like know thyself is the huge one. When we remember who we are, and then obviously, the rest kind of comes a tumbling down, really. The rest kind of becomes toffee. And as we know, ownership is dangerous, which is why, very similar journey to myself, really kind of came across the common law and the Magna Carta stuff and all that, but then very quickly fell into the world of corporate fiction, commerce, and commercial liens. That's where me and Khalees met with the Baron David Ward's work and rose up through the ranks, for cutting a very long story short, and met the man, and I learned my kind of craft, I suppose, and I won't even call it that because I'm not the Messiah. But I
No
kind
one
of
is.
learning what I know. I'm not the Messiah. I'm a very naughty soul.
That's right.
And but I had a passion like you did, and I just, I remember in the early days, like I say, people would gather around me in the end and go, "Well, what's the answer, Carly?" And I'd say, "Well, don't ask me, because that's what's got us into this mess in the first place. Don't listen to me, listen to yourself. We can aid each other, we can help each other, we can highlight, we can, we can weigh shore to a degree, because I think we're all probably just nerds who've got a passion for this stuff, as I always say. But like I said, we know that we know the system feeds on this loose energy, and like you say, Pete, it's not the living man or woman. People will mistakenly say, as you say, that we're this birth certificate, that and it's that we've got to divorce. That's the simplest thing, because we're not that res in the trust. We're not a property. We're not property or a thing, which is why they turn us into the fiction, into the Black's law. See person, see corporation, and we've got to get people kind of changing that mindset, that victim mindset, that something's happening to them, and that someone's coming to save them, the kind of savior complex as well, and people kind of get that power back, and but I suppose like we were going to touch on jurisdiction, so we'll hop onto that.
Yes.
Juris, we know, means law, and diction is words. So again, it comes back to this trap of language that they've kind of got us caught in, and
Yes.
English is actually the direct inversion of Hebrew. The English language is the construct, and we know that the Bar Society, obviously, like I said, juris means law, diction means words, and we are enslaved by this legal language, the monsters of war that protect the noble ones, and we're doing these spells upon each other, and we're casting these spells, and as I say, legalese, it might look like English, might write like English, but it is not English. And this deception of grammar on documents, and again, there's quite a lot of information, I'm sure, on Pete's site and mine about four corner rule and how documents work. But we know that the language is the B system, and Rome, the Vatican, the dog star, the bar mitzvah. And they literally use this fictional all caps language to chop off our heads, don't they? Capitis maxima, they call it. They're literally chopping off the living head and creating the dead. So how would you begin to explain, Pete, how jurisdiction of these fake courts and this fake system operates, to say somebody who perhaps doesn't quite understand jurisdiction in and of itself, and have perhaps just woke up to the fact that this legal fiction corporate entity exists? How would you kind of, because I sometimes I don't think there is a simple answer sometimes with me, but I can go in the houses. But how would you kind of summarize and give a kind
Okay.
of succinct explanation of how jurisdiction applies and works?
Yeah. I mean, I get this all the time because people get confused. Because most people don't even know what a jurisdiction is. Okay. So the way I try and explain it to people is that jurisdictions only exist in paper only. That's it. Okay. They exist in paper. And for that jurisdiction to apply to you, you have to agree to it. And basically, you can sign the contract if you wish, or can verbally do it. So you go, okay, so what's a jurisdiction? Now, I'm going to make a very simple analogy. Let's say you live in your area, it can be Derby, it can be Leicester or whatever. Try and visualize the map. That's the land. Okay. Now let's just say it's a 20-mile radius. Now within that 20-mile radius, in the center is a pizza place, and they sell pizzas. Okay. That's a business. We're dealing commerce. And let's say I'm hungry and I want a pizza. So, okay, I'm now going to enter into business with this pizza place. Okay, I'm going to be a customer. I'm now going to place my order to actually order a pizza to get my bill. Now, if I do that and I contact the pizza place, I am now entering into their contract, if you like. I'm entering into their jurisdiction. So I then say, okay, then what is the size of your jurisdiction? And say, well, we can deliver in a 20-mile radius. So if I live 5 miles away from the pizza place, I can say, well, okay, then I am now within your jurisdiction, within your it's fictitious jurisdiction, and I can now order the pizza, and then I'm now in business with them. And then the pizza delivery boy comes out, delivers the pizza. I then pay my bill because I put my order in. So I receive my bill. Once I pay my bill, the business is concluded and I'm no longer operating in that jurisdiction. So I'm only operating in that jurisdiction throughout the time of me ordering the pizza, receiving it, and then paying my bill. And then I'm not. Once I've done that and I've ordered the pizza and I've paid my bill, I am now out of that jurisdiction. That pizza place can't phone me up 2 weeks later and say, you've got to pay us. I mean, what do you mean? And they say, well, you're still under our jurisdiction. How am I under your jurisdiction? I've concluded business with you. There's no contract with me in any way, shape, or form, you know? So as soon as you understand that, we can now look into the jurisdictions of countries. Okay. Now, a country is in fact a corporation. It is not the landmass. Okay. Not the landmass. It is a jurisdiction placed upon the landmass. Same as the pizza place. Exactly the same things going on. Okay. So in the country that people think they live in is normally called like the UK, United Kingdom. But then you've also got other words, other names. You've also got England. You've also got British Isles. You've also got Great Britain. And you go, well, hang on a minute. What's going on here? Why have we got all these different names? I can only be standing on one piece of land at any one time. So if I'm standing here right now, I can say I'm standing on England if I wish. How can I then be standing in the UK? When do I move my foot into the UK? Where's the UK bit? Where's the British Isles bit? And then when you realize that it's not referring to the physical land, it's actually a jurisdiction of a corporation, then you go, oh, now I know how to play the game. And now that I know how to play the game, I can look at the roads out there. There's no such thing as UK roads or American roads or Canadian roads or Australian roads. No such thing. There are only roads. That's it. They belong to us. We all equally share these roads. Now, there is a jurisdiction called UK roads, and you enter into that jurisdiction when you register your car. You enter into an agreement, okay? You register with the DVLA. I won't go into too much detail about operating in a trust or anything. You register with the DVLA. The DVLA work for the UK corporation. You are now operating within the UK jurisdiction that is now placed upon the road. Now you've done that, you've agreed, you've consented. The speed limits now apply to you. Parking tickets now apply to you. The yellow markings on the road apply to you now because you've registered the car. There's a license plate on that car. It's government property. You're operating in that jurisdiction. ULEZ applies to you now. It's the UK corporation's policy of the ULEZ. Now, when you know that, you go, oh, right, I can play this game. So if I don't register my car and I take it back and it now becomes my private property again, I am not operating in the jurisdiction of the UK corporation. That means ULEZ doesn't apply to me. That's correct. Speed limits don't apply. Parking tickets don't apply. All of it, none of it applies to me. And if these people who work for these corporations try and issue tickets upon me, That's a tortuous act. They're applying a contract to me where one does not exist. And if you can prove intent, an intent to defraud, that's now a criminal act. So anyone doing that can now face criminal charges for doing that. So when you understand jurisdictions, you can play this game. So this is another thing. People are looking into setting up their own nations. Like a nation, a lot of people don't know what a nation is. Nation, the word nation basically means birth of the people. But it also means there's an old French connotation to color of. So when the politician uses the word nation, it means color of birth of the people. In other words, not the people, the living, breathing, but something else, something artificial. Okay. And in fact, modern day nations only deal with persons. And what's a person? That's your birth certificate, persona, legal fiction, dead entity, corporation, not people. Now, once you know that, and you know that a nation is just another jurisdiction placed upon the landmass, you can change your jurisdiction, change the nation, and switch to a different jurisdiction, and not even move from the spot. Because I wanted to know how diplomatic community worked and all this sort of stuff, and now I know. So hopefully that explains what a jurisdiction is.
They register themselves as limited companies, don't they, as well, MPs?
Yes.
So they're moving themselves, because the company's house is in England and Wales, so it's classed as being out of that jurisdiction of the United Kingdom Limited PLC, whatever.
Correct.
So again, you're creating that separation. Same as with trust law, we don't want to hold a legal and equitable title because you don't want to own anything. It's like what you said. We hate to break it to people, but you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. You never owned anything in the first place,
No.
and you don't actually want to. You want the beneficial use of something, that you don't want to hold the legal and equitable title, and we split that. And as you say, if you're going to put your car in a private trust, and I believe you need to get these. It's all to do with ownership. He who creates owns, isn't it? So
Correct.
you need the certificate of manifest, isn't it, for the car itself?
Yeah,
Is it because the ownership
manufacturer
kind of
statement
belongs
of origin.
That's it. That's the one
Yeah.
I'm
That's what you're
pumping
looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. So the manufacturer's certificate of origin. And again, we're
Statement.
talking of putting things into trust as well.
Mhm.
And I always use Andrew Tate as an example, and it really gets up people's people. I've used it at talks, and they look at me going, "You can't Andrew Tate for?" But he's whatever you think of him, and I think we are all actors. Or the world is a stage, in Shakespearean terms. I know we touched on this with Richard, and it's players. So I just think, get your popcorn and play your part. We all come down here to play our parts, particularly as much as people think, oh, they wish they'd not bothered coming. But yeah, I think Andrew Tate plays a great part because he is telling us the truth. He's saying, I might have use of an 18 million pound mansion, but I don't own it. I might have use of 20 Bugattis or whatever, all these sports cars, but I don't own them. So he's constantly trying to get it across to the masses of how this works. And as we know, or nothing, control everything, and we're just utilizing the same at Dark Matters as you are, Pete, that knowledge that has been hidden from us, that knowledge that these elites, or these
Parasite
minions,
class.
parasites.
Yeah, parasite class.
Yeah, we're waking up to it, and we're playing. We're learning to play them at their own game, and I think there's reached a tipping point, certainly, where what's coming is, I don't think that they can't stop it. I also think that great reveal of that, and that they want the reset, and I don't think the reset is simply financial and commercial, but it has a deeper spiritual significance to it as well.
Yeah.
And like you say, we can begin to know who we are, know that we're not that piece of paper, that birth certificate. It actually says on it, Crown copyright, doesn't it? I mean, without getting into like Hornsey Wood's process, where you can kind of reclaim that certificate back, and that's in Dark Matters, but that's another deep dive. But
do you know what?
Again, if people can understand that jurisdiction, yeah.
The irony when you say that about Crown copyright, if you read it, it says you cannot use this as your identity, but yet you were able to get a passport or port pass with it. So look at all these different, going back to what Pete was saying earlier in terms of jurisdiction and agreements and contracts. I think there are so many subtle signs of it around us that we miss, like for instance, walking into a shop where it says special offer. It's an offer, and people are like, oh, bargain. Listen and look at these commercial words and what they mean to you as a beneficiary and where
Mhm.
you stand in every way we turn, because that is their living, breathing setup, and we are living, breathing within it. So we need to literally not think it's only over, it's everywhere in
Mhm.
everything they speak, because that is how and what they represent. So we just then learn that language. It doesn't have to be this like fight, this them and us.
Oh,
Like you said, this savior who's going to come and get. Absolutely not. It absolutely is the know thyself.
that's true. And try, I mean, going back to the savior part, is don't go looking for a savior. It's you. The savior is
That
within. It's up to you to save
really is.
yourself. You know, I can help people.
Absolutely.
I'll stretch out my hand and I'll lead you so far, but you've got to make those steps yourself, you know. So, but yeah, savior is within. Don't go looking for it. And I'd like to just, you mentioned the passport and the driver's license and everything. That's not you either. That's not your identity. That is the identity of your corporation.
Of,
So your
of that
passport's not you.
that very nope. It belongs to that same BC, the same birth certificate it's attached to. It's all
Yes.
attached to something. Yeah,
Yes.
and we can
Yeah.
literally sit there and look and observe that,
Yes.
without being attached to it at
Exactly.
all whatsoever.
I mean, remember as well, your passport is issued to you. They're telling you
Right.
in your face. If something's issued to you, it's not yours, is it? It's coming from a higher authority. It's in the language,
Yeah.
And,
but people can't see it.
and their
Yeah.
reverse language. I
Yeah.
mean, I've got very used to calling it a port pass, because that's exactly what it is. It
Yes.
allows you a pass at the port. It's all ships. It's all to do, it's
Maritime law.
we have to, yeah, be just so mindful and aware of it. Once we are, it's quite comfortable, if you know what I'm saying, as opposed to confusing. It's like,
Mm.
okay, you guys, you're doing the reverso on us. Yeah, we've learned reverso language too. So, yeah, and then we can turn it round and get what you're meaning by it. And yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
not
we
as
can
Yeah.
play the
complex.
game.
Yeah, I
It's
think
like
people are
learn the serpent tongue in it, the forked tongue.
Yeah.
Learn the serpent tongue and use it against them.
Yeah, they speak a bicameral language. That's why there's two tongues. So it's
sure.
like
Yeah.
that's the two tongue. Bicameral means two. Yeah, two
Mm.
tongues.
Mm.
I don't know.
Bicameral means two.
No. I
Two
learn some.
languages.
When something pops every day, like when you learn something new like that, oh, I'm like I'm obsessed with it. It's like proper passion. I love the language. I love the decode of it, and yeah, it's like
Absolutely.
say that's why we have the P in the passport when you know that it means
Yes.
purser, which means boat slave. You've got to kind of.
Yeah.
That's why I say the MPs have that limited liability, because liability means the ability to be lied to, and that they just
Mm.
close that down. And I always use the example, Tony Blair, the man got to walk away from his weapons of mass destruction and mass genocide because it was Tony Blair the company that did it, not Tony Blair the
Correct.
man. And they're on the jurisdiction of, well, company was in the jurisdiction of on England and Wales, but he was operating in the United Kingdom, so they just dissolve it. And they
Yes.
it creates that diplomatic immunity for them, as well as you were
Yeah.
touching on earlier. But yeah,
Yep.
even within the courts themselves, this is what people don't realize. Like, you can have one court, but you've got the three jurisdictions going on there in the court,
Oh,
and the judge will leave and come back in. So the first jurisdiction, like you say, Pete, is in three. It's commercial law for the first, where the judge is the landowner. Second is maritime canon law, where he's the banker. And then you're going into Talmudic law, where he's, the high priest of Baal, and he'll walk in and out and whatnot. And if you get him in the third jurisdiction, then you may have just expressed that trust and claimed you claim the freedom. But we're kind of going into that. I mean, like I say, I deal with the debt. And we're going after the trust titles. We're working with Peter of England with the Weirbank drafts,
yeah.
and expressing the trust, because really, it's just that it's all securities. We know when they issue warrants and summons, they're actually on the hook. They're the surety for that security until the legal fiction turns up and goes, "That's me,"
Yep.
and that's the one thing that we don't want to be doing. So if we can get people, like say, understanding the language, understanding that they are not the birth certificate, in a standing jurisdiction, then those topics in and of themselves are like the keystones to it, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, this is why it can be mind blowing for people getting into this. If they get into it in the middle or too deep, it's too much for them. It's like they can't take this information on. And then this is why I say you've got to start at the beginning. You've got to go back to the beginning,
Mm.
learn the basics. this is when I was like I said, I mentioned before, when I research stuff, I'll hit something new I've never seen before, but then I realize I need a certain understanding to be able to understand this new topic that I've actually discovered.
Yeah.
So then you have to go off, learn that, come back 6 months later, and now I'm ready to tackle it. So this is why people get all sorts of things wrong and get muddled up and all this. It's a bit of a nightmare, but I try and help people to get on the right path.
Yeah, it's a bit like unlearning to relearn, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like just unpacking all the crap that we've been stuck with and going, hold on, that didn't serve a purpose. It hasn't served a purpose. Let me replace it with what can work for me.
Yeah.
To help, I would say also minimalize the discombobulation that people absolutely get into. I think sometimes maybe overthink when less is more, and this way to go in. And the whole point of Sovereign Project for me is as well, it's an each one teach one. So
Mm.
there will be different people on different levels of the journey. And if you're more experienced and you've kind of been there and done that, you can kind of help those coming up to that kind of level, and like a village almost,
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
village.
That's right. I don't use
Yeah.
the word community because I think we all now know what community truly means.
I
So
call
Communism.
it, I interpret it
it
as
is.
community.
I say
Yeah,
common unity. I kind of try and
that's what
split
we
it up, common unity. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think they
we've
they say
chosen.
they,
Yeah.
they say community, but it's communism, isn't it?
Commune, yeah, it's based on commune. You go, well, what do you find when you're living in a commune? Well, first of all, you've given up your right to your state and you've given up your right to
Hmm.
privacy. So if you say you live in a
Hmm.
community, then facial recognition pops up everywhere because you've just given up your right to privacy. So it's all in the language.
And it's,
This is what it's a
we
buzzword.
need
Yeah.
to
Everyone's
word
using it.
nation.
It's, we're,
We
we're in
need
a,
to
we're
that
in a
word.
data war, aren't we? And we know it's a spiritual war, but it's certainly a data war. And this is
Mm,
why we know that, the use of Data Protection Act and, these breaches of law, and we've got to kind of hold these public servants accountable, and these bankers, these agents, which are really just agents of the security trustee, which is the Bank of England. And it is, like I say, I focus on trying to show people how that, you can talk about debt and credit, and we know debt
mm,
and credit are the same thing, really. And we're all running around as naughty children, classed as minors in trust law, and because we're not promising to pay stuff all the time, paying debt with debt, and that's what the national debt is. Then we're not kind of taking charge of our estate and our own affairs, and we're all lunatics and imbeciles before the state and the court. And then the parent is, the state is the parent under parents patria, and then they come and austerity kicks in because we've been naughty. We have to take things, things have to be taken away from us, and the beat goes on. So
mm.
to show people that actually they are the beneficiary of these trusts, and that actually they've been made to be the trustee, and in our ignorance, we've been gifting our value and our equitable share of the earth and its resources, henceforth. And I think this again. It comes back to this point of us all working together, and that we all have a certain skill sets. And I know kind of what mine is. I love debt. I love debt. I love debt, and I love all the esoteric and the language. And come and find us for that. But again, the idea of Dark Matters is, we can have the Sovereign Project in there, and maybe we'll talk about it off camera. Maybe get some discounted access to Pete's courses or whatever it is. Same with Peter of England. Same with whomever is coming into the network. And we've got people who are going to come in and deal with speeding, who are going to deal with parking, and all these kind of remedies will be there and accessible. And because we know that it's divide and conquer out there, and it never ceases to amaze me. And I know we spoke about it briefly, Pete. I'm not saying like I can't do everything, but I know what I can do, and I'm like, well, let me just focus on what I can do and do that well. And then, but we have these trusted people that we can kind of come to. And it's such a shame to have seen in the movement that because we know it's divide and conquer, and that actually they all started, and began to fight themselves. And it
Yeah.
just seemed that, some people were trying to bring other people down. And it has, we're trying to battle these commercial entities. But yeah, commercial maxim, he who leaves the battlefield first loses by default. But it just seemed like, be careful when you fight the monsters, lest you become one. The people that were going up against this system to battle it kind of turned into it and came after everybody else in commerce, like, as though it was some kind of competition, and seemed hell bent on bringing others down instead of like maybe communicating and seeing how we can all aid and assist each other, which is,
Yes.
not what occurred.
Like
So,
grown up.
what do you think about that? Because we know it's a spiritual war. What's
Yeah.
been your experience of that? And obviously, we know it's that kind of inner battle as we, spiritually express it out. What do you think about it being this spiritual war? Like, have you had some kind of strange experiences out there? And
Well,
what do you think it's up to?
yeah, nothing like that. But yeah, I do think it's a spiritual thing. And I tend to think that not many people have souls anymore. I don't know if it's ever
Yeah,
happened to you, but if you talk to some people, they seem empty. There's nothing behind the eyes anymore. Yeah, there's nothing there. I notice it more and more.
You're right.
Yeah, it is.
The
Something's not right
floor,
with them. I know it's
the
hard.
fluorite. I think they've nicknamed it after. Quite funny.
I know it's like
yeah.
NPCs, non-playable characters with no soul, and that's how most people are. Normally, you'll see them walking down the street glued to the mobile phone, and that's that. You go, oh, okay, there's nothing there, there's nothing left. I
Yeah,
don't know what the soul is, but I think there is one. That sort of thing. I have my own ideas on the universe and all that. I'm not religious per se. I don't follow a religion or the word religion to create a legion of followers. Religion. So
yeah.
not saying if people want to follow a religion, that's your choice, but just be aware that religions can become corrupted and they can be used to keep the people at the very top in power and very wealthy. So just be careful of that.
There's
But yeah, it's
absolute
a
evidence
spiritual one.
of
What's that?
life, yeah. There's
Say
absolute evidence of that historically in religion. So
yes.
what you've just said is backed by fact. It's actually, this isn't
Go and
your
look it up.
opinion. It's
We've got thousands
actually
of years of
written.
history.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We just have to
That's
look at what they do. And
date.
it's
Yeah.
you don't even need evidence of it, do you? Really, it's kind of like this. You shall know them by their fruits thing, as it says in scripture. And to me, script is a code. It's not that it literally says in the Bible, which is
Hmm.
the first technical document. It's parable and allegory. It's actually stated in there that that's what it is. But it's they.
Mm.
I always say if they're going to let you do it and practice it, it's not right. It's incorrect. So the fact that they've made this institution, and we know they are one of the richest institutions because we know all roads lead to Rome and the Vatican, and
Yep.
Vatican comes from dog. And the Vatican is dog star and the dog star of
Hmm.
Sirius. And then you're getting into like our origins and that's what Genesis is in scripture. It's genetic. It's
Yeah.
where we came from. And once you decode all that, and I love the decode. Yeah, religion is it's the Roman satanic civil church. It's and that's what the system's based on, ecclesia or ecclesiastical is
Yes.
Satan, as I say. I've not said Satan
Yeah.
once for this whole interview, so I'm
Well, it is a
I've got
static
Satan
system.
satanic Tourette's.
You just got to dig deep. I mean, going back to the word the Vatican, I did some research, and apparently there is a goddess called Vatica, and this goddess Vatica, she is actually the goddess of the underworld that would actually retain all the dead souls. So she would have demons that would actually collect the dead souls, and then she would collect the dead souls, which seems very familiar. But if you know about the Vatican, collects your dead entity, birth certificate, and all
Yeah,
the rest of
yeah.
it in their catacombs
I think
underground.
it's
So
interesting.
make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
make
And
of it as
the
you
Bar
will.
Society, the bar were actually called the Gala, and the Gala were Sumerian demons of the underworld, which fits in completely with
Mm,
that Vatica, because the Gala, which are now the Bar Society, which, as we know, control the City of London, were responsible for the harvesting of souls of the
yep.
lost and the damned, as we know. So the Gala were ancient Sumerian demons. So it's all this demonology and this demonic
Yes.
language that we've just we forgot who we are. We forgot our true history.
And
And I had a really good
look at
interview with them. It was a shaman guy who works with the land, and we also did an interview with Laura Eisenhower, and they were saying the same thing. We've lost this disconnection to the land, and we know in legal terms why. And our land is our body as well. But triple crown of Baal and the unum sanctum
Yeah.
and whatnot. But how do we heal from something when we don't know what it is? Because they're telling us an incorrect history. So if we know that we've been lied to, we know that, but what are those lies? How do we begin to heal from something that we don't know what it is? Which is why the dark matter stuff again is so important to me, because I'm not here to tell anyone what to think, but we just like to postulate. And but there's a commonality to it, isn't there? There's a common thread, and the language is the key to it, without a shadow of a doubt. And that mathematical interface of language, the zeros and the ones that turn into, and then it's like Neo in the Matrix. The whole thing comes down. I'm such
Mm.
a geek for that stuff, but it's definitely my truth anyway.
Yes,
And it's
yes, yes.
funny, I've just written down the word Vatican, and it's that, VIT, can.
Mm.
I'm like, they've been doing that to us long enough, haven't they? Yeah, taking the I can, that. And they have,
I think
Yeah,
it's
we could just
Italian
pop
for
it
play
dog.
on
Yeah,
words.
it's the Italian root for dog. So the star is the
Yeah,
can is the
absolutely.
serious stuff. I'm
Yeah.
getting that correct. I did research it once. It's but my head's full of all kind. Sure, these days I'm sure I put things in and it pushes old stuff out. Like you were saying, then you
Can't
have to go
remember it
back
all.
round and go like, whoa,
I
like
mean,
the
you know
rings of
what?
Saturn.
It's no secret, right, that what we've got here is the population control, yeah? The eugenics dressed up as philanthropy. We know that. We know that because of the latest game they've played with the snake oil juice, right? So if we know that their principal objective is to play God, to
Mm.
decide how many beings and entities should be on this earth, be it human or animal, we know we're playing with psychopaths. We know
Yes.
that. That's a given. So that if we're up against psychopaths, I'm not suggesting we have to think psychopathically, but we have to understand that mindset in order to find the remedy for it. Not run from it, not be fearful of it, not be confused by it, but recognize its actuality. And if we're staring that in the face, we have a chance of the change. Not until we do. Not until we do.
You
So
have
that's
to
my kind of
understand your
personal.
enemies. You're right.
Yeah.
Understand you don't agree with them, but you've got to know how they think. So yeah, that's what you got to do.
Yes,
You
totally.
got to learn how to play the game.
Even
I
the
mean, most
word
people.
display.
I mean, here's the thing about the game. I call it a game just so people don't feel so frightened of it. Try and think of it as a game. But the thing is the average person out there is playing noughts and crosses, but the system is chess. And
Yeah,
also,
absolutely.
another thing I say to people is before you learn how to play this game, don't be a piece on the board looking up. Be the master of the game looking down at the whole board and understanding who the pieces are. Don't be a piece. Know how to play the
Yeah,
moves. Okay.
yeah,
So
I call that the eagle.
definitely.
Yeah.
yeah.
You could be an eagle or a pigeon. You can step on the game and go around in circles and up like you don't give a crap. Or you can be that eagle,
Yes.
flying down and
You're looking
yeah,
down at the game.
absolutely.
That's when you're
Yeah,
And
it's
I
the
was
same.
suffering.
just saying,
It's the Monopoly reference I always use. Don't
Yeah,
be
that's
pushing
another
your
one.
shoe and getting money as you pass go. Who's the most powerful piece and player in the game,
Yeah.
and be the banker. You are the banker.
Hmm.
We are the creditors, and that's what we've kind of got to do. We've got to you know rearrange these trusts. I mean, we know that it's a game, like you say, Pete. It's kind of like, well, all of it. There has to be intention to set up a trust. Three, night v night, isn't it? The three certainties of a trust. And one of them is intention. So that your mother didn't intend to put you. That there was no intention there. It's
Correct.
just a stupid. It's a silly game, and I always say
Yeah.
even common. People then bang on about the common law. We know what the common law is: no harm, no injury, no loss. If it's criminal, if there's a victim, that's
Hmm.
under the law, the land, the earth, and the water. But and if it's civil, if it's to do with financially, like I say, it's a civil tort. But even
Yeah.
common comes from municipal to burden to obligate. It's still a Roman system. It's still a
It is.
construct. It's still a box in a what box,
It
and
is.
true. I think they say it's to be sovereign, isn't it? I think sovereign perhaps is linked to kings and queens, but we take that back because we
Yes.
know that are the beneficiaries of the earth, and we all have an equitable share of its resources, etc. And it's just been, as we know, taken from us when we are, signed. Our mothers give the power of attorney into this system, kind of
Yes.
fraudulently, really, but we can't call it fraud if we're all joining in our ignorance. Fraud is or ignorance is no defense of the law, etc. So I am, I know I'm a bit like it's natural law, isn't it? I mind
Yes.
my business. I don't do anything to you. We should be able to build, our homes not houses from the earth's resources to grow food, to be left in peace, and have have technology to free us and not to enslave us. So they want 15-minute cities, transhumanism, etc. and so forth. And I'll stay away from the word community now, Pete. We'll be over here like creating the new, hopefully, and like I said, the system's bullshit really, and it'll get you staring at that Rubik's cube of it until you go blind. But we can utilize it to create a vanguard to it, because it is beyond the world, not in it. We can't admit that it's not out there, but I try and give it as little attention as possible. Apart from, I give it quite a lot of attention because it's like I'm a nerd for it. But again, I think if people have a passion for it, do it. But if you've not, learn the basics, and by coming to the Sovereign Project, or and then come and seeing us, and then let, I always say, Donocles, let the lawyers law, and let the people who I can't grow a carrot, but so if we all work together, then we can create something. Well, that system goes down, going down.
So honestly, you were using the word nation earlier, and it sort of bubbled in my head, and then I was thinking of regeneration, and then came reincarnation.
Yes.
So we're almost kind of like reincarnating, aren't we, as a nation? We're stripping off this old, hypnotized, suppressed, indentured slave type system and way of thinking and being, and reincarnating ourselves into this nation of gods and goddesses, which are literally walking gods and goddesses. We are the complete that, and that might offend some religious people who like to think there's a guy in the sky that looks like Russell Brand that is coming to save you. Sorry to have to say, we are.
Each to their own.
So let's embrace our godliness, ourselves as real, living, breathing entities, walking this beautiful, precious planet called Earth. It's not, but I'll use that word.
But yeah, you've got to be careful of all these words. I mean, we touched on a few early, like community, obviously. So now we know what that means. You see, what the people behind government, the legal fiction called government, is they'll use that word in their paperwork and hope you don't spot it. So they'll say something like, we're putting up CCTV to protect members within the community. Right?
Right.
And and we now know that community means those who have given up their right to privacy. So if you accept the community, you've now agreed that you've given up your right to privacy, and therefore you've agreed to the CCTV. Therefore, the government is now doing something lawful and legal because you consented. You see how they do it?
Well, there's psychology behind it, isn't it, Pete?
Yeah.
That's the psychology. You romanticize a word, you make it seem as if it's an inclusive word, so people buy into it, right?
Yeah.
They contract with it. They go into it curious, right? Okay, so that awakening, that very explanation you've just given there, allows that person with that awareness then to step away and go, thanks, but no thanks.
Yes.
I'll stay with the village. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I mean, if you're...
And this is the difference
go ahead.
between recording things at law to registration. We would have recorded unions between a male and a male and a female, whereas now we know that the marriage or marriage, because it's livery and livestock terms, is it's a marriage is a marriage. It's to do with creating the value or consideration within the marriage of the state, which is the children, or the birthing of the children, and children means chattel, property. Husband means house slave, in language, and wife comes from Fraulein, and the Dutch, I think, was it High German, which means bitch. So again, like we need to just, when like say that when we have that trust and we remove what would be, the creator at the top of that trust, and bring the divine masculine and sacred feminine into it, and we replace that with with the state, then it nullifies it under the creator, and it becomes a product and contract of the state in commerce. And again, they're getting us doing all these kind of like fingers up to the creator, really, to keep us in that ball, that dark system, instead of where we should be, back on the land as living men and women, recording our unions and a lawful kind of manner. And it's all like, the more I learn, the more we can kind of just stop doing it.
Yeah.
Just say no, man.
That's the thing. That's the key, Callie, isn't it, Pete?
Yeah,
If we
don't play the
just
game.
yeah, we're just
Yeah.
like, it's our decision. And the
Yes.
fact that a majority have decided to continue to collude with it tells us that. So, and we can
Yeah.
see, can't we? Us three are good examples of it, where we have decided not to. We are absolutely 100% as free as we can,
Yeah.
without, having to be arrested or go through like thousands of pounds of litigation. It doesn't have to be that.
I mean,
Doesn't a little
a
bit
lot.
of learning.
Yeah.
goes a long
You
way.
got to change the mindset. You got to become sovereign. And now here's the thing: a lot of people get in contact with us at the Sovereign Project saying, "How do I correct my status?" And I go, "Right, I'm going to have to help you with your mindset because there's nothing wrong with your status." See, because people get confused with the birth certificate and they think they've got to somehow that's their status. No, it's got nothing to do with you. Okay, your status is perfectly fine. It's one of sovereign. As long as you're over the age of consent, you are now sovereign. End of. That's
And you
it.
have no one you have to prove that to.
Correct.
Yeah. Again, that back to that. Oh, I need to be validated by somebody. I need to say this is me, and you to thank you, Peter. Thank you, absolutely. Like who said that? That's the old mindset, right?
The old
and that's
mindset.
The bit I think I'm not recognizing in this whole setup of status correction. I need status correction. You've always been correct. You're absolutely perfect. Yes, you are. Yeah. And you know what? I get.
I don't know whether they'd say that about me, but
no, but we know, right, that we've got the history of flags and symbolism, which a lot of people, are very, very big on, and clans and stuff like that. And so when we hit things like status correction, it kind of goes back to that. It goes back to the clansmen. It goes back to the flags and who was recognized as who. And I get that historically, but in the here and now, how is that effective? When actually we're all equity, we're all equal. So how does that, it might have worked 500, 600, 700 years ago. Now we're in a different time. Yeah. So it's great to have your flag and your shield if it makes you feel great and gives you your
if you want to play the game.
But that shield and flag isn't going to feed you. It's not going to pay your mortgage. It's not going to make you happier in totality, other than just having it. Yeah, that's cool. I don't fault people for wanting it, but there's a lot of energy there that could be used in their remedy.
Yes.
And it's not going to be a flag that does that for them,
No, not at all. Not. Yeah, a lot of people are looking for symbolism and paperwork to prove they're sovereign and all the rest of it. And I'm going, that's not how it works. You already are. It's up to someone else to sort of, if they're making a claim that you're not, well, the burden of proof is on them. And I go, go on and knock that out. Prove that I'm not. And they can't. So this is a position you should always be in as well. If someone's making a claim upon you, then you should be going, okay, well, am I obligated? Where are you getting the authority from? And where's my informed consent?
Yeah. And it's that
Checkmate.
authority. I think we're so conditioned to want it. It's kind of that. It's a bit of the Matrix thing, isn't it? Some people are so indentured, and dentures contracts, or in that system they'll fight to defend it. And this idea of authority, and even it's so heavily ingrained in us. Like we said earlier, you're born on a ward, and then you become a ward of the state and a ward of the court. And what do they give good slaves? If you've done something good at school, you get an award. You want a certificate. I know how to do something because someone's giving you the permission and authority. Well, no. And they call it. That's why they call archons, which is why you get architecture, archaeology, Ark of the Covenant. And the list goes on. But archon means authority above. And we're so used to, like I say, it's so ingrained in us. And I know the Baron, people used to say, well, why does he call himself a Baron? But, the Baron that used to be a term, an Old English term called barrowman. And that was that you recognise no authority above you. But the system hijacked the term Baron and made hereditary titled barons and stole it again and inverted it. So again, we've got to kind of get out from under this yoke of authority, this arc of authority.
I mean, there's no such thing as authorities. People keep saying to me, oh, the authorities are doing this. And I go, what do you mean authorities? There's no such thing as authorities. Authority comes from you. I mean, the word authority comes from the word author. Exactly, author. I am the author of my authority. It's my word, not yours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course. All the and we that's it. We create our own stories, and we know it's all
Yes.
script. It's like Baron used to say in it, police. What is the system? Confidence, faith, and belief. We make it real with our minds, and it's the same with reality, isn't it? We're matter, but our consciousness is creating matter, not the other way around. And that's where it is such a huge spiritual journey, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I always say the journey of the law is the journey of the spirit. What I was always quite a spiritual being, but when I started, like, these last 4 years to decode the legal, and oh wow, it's all in there, from the Saturnian modes of the judge to, how we can utilize scripture kind of against them. And we know if we do things in love and charity, it kind of trumps the tax codes and the business codes. And it's all about the love, man. But we've got to kind of, I think people are, I think there is a tip from doing it, from seeing, going up and down the country for the
Yes.
last 4 years,
Yeah.
country as a person. So yeah, I think there's a definite shift, and I think a lot of people are reporting, even in community groups.
Yes.
I mean, in area that I know I'll never speak again, will we? And that there's a definite shift. Numbers are growing and getting wider, but and unfortunately, this is why we kind of know they're putting all these migrants into hotels,
Yeah, I know.
because
Air quotes
yeah.
everywhere.
Men of fighting age, unfortunately, because they know that there's going to be a pushback, and I don't like to do the fear porn, or
No,
let's hope that it doesn't get that far, that this is the great awakening. That's what the apocalypse means, isn't it? The
it
unveiling,
does.
and the legal system's unveiling itself, the banking system's unveiling itself. So we've just got to
Yes.
kind of crack on to the best of our ability.
Spread the word, get the information out. That's what it's all about. I mean, again, this is what the Sovereign Project does. We will always give information for free. So all the information we have will always, always, always be free. Free downloads. In fact, we've just set up the Sovereign Wiki now. Okay, so the Sovereign Wiki is for people who've got good information and they want to share it with others, and it's a free resource. You can put your information on the Sovereign Wiki and it can share with everybody. Okay, and we're going to be putting some more stuff on the Sovereign Wiki. There's council tax stuff, Donna's numbers, parking ticket information. It's all on there. It's free, and you can get that on the website.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and yeah, that's it. We'll make sure that when we get this out there, it'll go in the network, as we said first, and then get it out wider. And we'll put all Pete's links below into the Sovereign Project. And I know you work closely with Gav, who I've been chatting with. He's got a great team there of people that help Pete out doing what you all do over there. So
good team of people.
so yeah, that's cool. And so I think we'll obviously we'll perhaps leave it there, and I don't want to kind of take up too much more of your time, unless, Khalees, there's anything else you want to ask Pete, or
just a couple of things. One, I just want to say that, Pete, you really are a great example of the beauty of the expansion of consciousness.
Thank you very much.
Thank you